Good day. There is a saying that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. The United States has been the greatest supporter of the Ukrainian cause over the past 3 years as it engaged in a brutal war with Russia. The United States, over the past 3 years, especially during the regime of the President Joe Biden, always told the Ukrainians that they will get the support as long as it takes. That was what Joe Biden always used to say. But now the tune has changed. There's a new president, and a pharaoh who does not know Joseph has come on board. The Ukrainian cause has taken a new tangent, and this new pharaoh wants Ukraine to make peace. Peace is what is on offer for Ukraine now, and not just any peace, not a peace brought about by ceasefire, but a complete and permanent peace. That we have found out was the final outcome or the big takeaway of the meeting between President Donald Trump and President Putin in Alaska. After 3 hours of meeting, the Russian president impressed upon the American president that he isn't looking for half measures. He wants the matters that concern Russia to be addressed, and he wants security of Europe to be addressed. He also wants the security of Ukraine to be addressed under a complete peace framework, a peace treaty, not half measures in the form of a ceasefire. And that message seems to be the message that President Trump is now putting out, not only to the Ukrainians, because like he promised, he said he was going to call the Ukrainian president immediately after the meeting and he will brief him on what the outcome of the meeting was. He did brief President Zelensky, and he not only briefed President Zelensky, he also invited, I dare say he summoned President Zelensky to the White House in a few days' time, on Monday specifically. He also briefed the European leaders who formed the team they call the Coalition of the Willing. Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Finland. All those European leaders who continue to say that Ukraine can carry on with this war and they will support Ukraine as long as it takes. They are still parroting and echoing the refrain of as long as it takes. But President Trump has invited them, and the whole world is looking forward to that meeting between President Zelensky and possibly also some European leaders in the White House in the few days ahead. Good day and welcome to my channel, Ebima Amongo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I express, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. It helps the algorithm grow. President Trump called the meeting a success. He insists that this meeting was a very successful one. And he put it out in a social media post where he says, a great and very successful day in Alaska. Meeting with President Vladimir Putin of Russia went well, as did the late night phone call with President Zelensky of Ukraine and various European leaders, including the highly respected Secretary General of NATO. It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Ukraine and Russia is to go directly to a peace agreement, which will end the war, not a mere ceasefire agreement, of which oftentimes do not hold up. President Zelensky will be coming to Washington, D.C., the Oval Office, on Monday afternoon. If all works out, we will then schedule a meeting between President Putin, potentially millions of people's lives will be saved. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Putin, President Trump's second in the National Security Council of Russia, also put out a tweet regarding this particular meeting. And in his own view, he put what essentially was a Russian point of view. I should point out that the Russian President Putin has already arrived Russia, and he has arrived Moscow, and he didn't waste time in holding a team meeting with his team, and he has put out the whole his own take of the meeting with President Trump. And following that meeting, Dmitry Medvedev put out this particular post on Telegram: a fully functional framework for a highly level meeting between Russia and US, conducted calmly and without ultimatums or threats, has been reestablished. The Russian president has personally given his American counterpart a detailed account of our conditions for ending the conflict. After almost 3 years of talks, the US leader decided to stop escalating pressure on Russia, at least for now. Important fact: the meeting has demonstrated that negotiations are possible without precondition while special military operation continues. Main takeaway: both parties have placed responsibility for achieving results during future negotiations about a cessation of hostilities squarely on Kyiv and Europe. The Ursula von der Leyen, the European EU president, also put out a tweet. But while she may put this tweet out as in a personal capacity, thank you, POTUS, for the updates on discussions in Alaska. The EU is working closely with Zelensky UA and the United States to reach a just and lasting peace. Strong security guarantees that protect Ukrainian and European vital security interests are essential. Well, it so turned out that the Europeans actually did have a meeting, and they put out a statement. And these Europeans included the Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, the Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Minister of Britain, the Prime Minister of Finland and Poland, and the European Union President Costa. In this early morning, President Trump debriefed us and President Zelensky following his meeting with the Russian president in Alaska. Leaders welcome President Trump's effort to stop the killing in Ukraine, Russia's war of aggression, and achieve a just and lasting peace. In essence, what they are saying is that they will continue, because they went ahead and said it will be up to Ukraine to make a decision on its territory. International borders must not be changed by force. Our support for Ukraine will continue. We are determined to do more to keep Ukraine strong in order to achieve an end to the fighting and a just and lasting peace. As long as the killing in Ukraine continues, we stand ready to uphold the pressures on Russia. We will continue to strengthen sanctions and wider economic measures to put pressure on Russia's war economy until there's a just and lasting peace. Ukraine can count on our unwavering solidarity as we work towards a peace that safeguards Ukraine's and Europe's vital security interests. In other words, President Trump is on his own. The Europeans have decided that they will move on with or without President Trump. What will be the essence of the meeting that is coming up? That is the big question. Already it has been speculated that President Trump will tell President Zelensky, you got to let go of some part of the Donetsk, the Donbass. You have to withdraw your people, your soldiers. It has been a good fight. You have done very well. At this point, you're losing, and this is what the Russians are offering. He has been talking about land swap, and it is expected that he may tell Zelensky that this is the deal and this is what is on the table. What he may do after that, and after presenting the point of view of himself and possibly that of Putin to Zelensky. It will be left for Zelensky to make a decision on behalf of his people. But already Zelensky has signaled severally that he is not going to be involved in any land swaps or concession of land to the Russians. And of course, he continues to have the backing of the Europeans. They are very doggedly behind him, and they have said that they will continue. Apparently, some people perceive that this may just be Trump's ultimate off-ramp. But Trump has been very optimistic. He says he will schedule a second meeting, one that will involve Zelensky in a tripartite meeting with Putin. He also, I guess, would urge the Europeans to start to cool down the angers and all the hate they feel within themselves for Russia. Because there was once he did mention, President Trump mentioned that he tried to make peace and he called all the European leaders. And when they asked him how the meeting went with the European leaders and after a meet call with Putin, he said it was more complex than he thought. That what he perceived out of it was hatred, pure hatred. It's not so easy to hold back the hatred of the Europeans. After all, it was that intense hatred that has plunged Europe into over a millennium of unrelenting and continuous war, if not between the French and the English, between the Spaniards and the Italians, between the Italians and the Austrians, and it has been unending. The Poles fight the Russians' throat. The Russians are the throat of the Ottomans. It has just been unending, and then they gave us two world wars. Two wars as the world had never seen before. Those wars came out of pure competitive pressures, but raw hatred for each other. The killing and the brutality of World War I and World War II was such that the world had never seen anything like that. It was mass slaughter at a scale that came out. And of course, what did they do in both cases? This particular war in Ukraine is very unique. It was one that for the very first time America led. It was an American project under Joe Biden, and it was a project that, because they always had, it wasn't hard. Just scratch the surface, you'll find someone who doesn't like Russia. It was very easy for him to form a coalition against the Russian state and push an agenda that ultimately prompted Russia to take the course of actions that it took. But prior to now, the First World War was one when America reluctantly joined that war. The reluctance was even worse for the Second World War. It was quite a long term, and it was mainly because the Japanese, thinking that in destroying the Pacific fleet of the Americans in Hawaii, it may just help the Pearl Harbor. It may prevent the Americans from joining the war, as they persecuted a war in Southeast Asia, trying to they conquered the territories of Britain and the territories of the Dutch and the territories of the French, Vietnam, Myanmar, Burma, all those countries of Southeast Asia that they felt they could get resources to power their economy, their growing economy at that time, and they just didn't want the Americans to be part of it. It was a miscalculation. America used that excuse to join the war and showed industrial capacity at a level that was bewildering to the world. The world had never seen anything like that. America was producing ships almost on a weekly basis, thousands of ships, thousands of aeroplanes. Americans showed a capacity, an industrial capacity, as man had never seen on earth. China is still playing games. They are not yet there yet. The war capacity, the war and industrial capacity of America during World War II is to be studied. It's beyond belief. They were outputting planes, outputting ships, outputting boats at a level that boggles the mind. That was how They, from that moment, became the preeminent industrial power in the world at a time that wars and hatred led to the destruction of the British and the French empires and laid Germany waste and bare. Germany was overrun by the Soviets. And if it was not for the intervention of the Americans who told the Russian, the French and the British to hold off all anger they had for the Germans, because they were about to get at the throat of the Germans once again, as they had done after World War I, asked for some bone-crushing reparations, but the Americans held them, told them off, held them back, helped the Germans rebuild, put a Marshall Plan that helped the Germans rebuild, and pointed them to a new enemy, the Soviet Union, who were a force of communism. And for that reason, America stopped the Europeans from getting at each other's throat and destroying themselves completely. This time, America helped them. They led their war with the Russians. But Joe Biden's regime has gone. Joe Biden, a man full of hatred of Putin, formed a coalition of people who always hated the Russian state because they had history as a Soviet state. And that coalition now finds themselves losing their biggest benefactor and patron, possibly under Donald Trump. There will be worry on Monday because they really don't know. Donald Trump is keeping his cards to his chest. The images, the pictures that came out of the meeting with Putin were worrying. These pictures and these images were so disturbing to the presenters, especially British presenters in the BBC, in Sky News, to Europeans in Canal Plus, to the Germans in Deutsche Welle. The image was one that they just could, it did not sit well in Europe. It broke hearts all across Europe, and it caused deep depression in Ukraine. It may just be that it is for this reason that we are now seeing the almost near collapse of the Ukrainian front. Pokrovsk, Konstantinovka, Sloviansk, the last strongholds of the Ukrainians in the Donbass are being assailed and undermined. They are being chopped up, for the lack of a better word. The Russians are running rings around the Ukrainians and mowing them down. Not to say they are not taking casualties themselves, but the way and rate at which they've stepped up their actions in those battlefields is overwhelming the Ukrainian army at a time that they are lacking in manpower and at a time that they are low on morale. Donald Trump's statement to Zelensky is one that every Ukrainian will be watching closely and waiting to hear. Zelensky is defiant. He says there will be no swap of land, no relinquishing of any part of the Ukrainian territories. And he has the backing of the Europeans. But Trump is in a position where he can safely say that this is your war. You can deal with the Russians. We are not spending further on this project. You can go ahead with it if you want to. It's not usually a good thing when the Americans leave a war theater. They did that in Vietnam. The North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, overran the South Vietnamese and defeated them comprehensively. They did that also in Afghanistan. They left. And the government that was left there thought they could continue with the war. And in just a month or so, that government collapsed. The Taliban came out of the mountains of Peshawar, came out of all those places that they had been hiding and running away from American drones and bombs, Hellfire drones and Reaper drones and Hellfire bombs. They came out. They overran Kabul, and they're in government now, building new relationships with China and Russia, incidentally, not with America. So it is not a good thing when America leads you to war and decides that this war is not profitable to their interest. So for that reason, they may just have to move on. The Europeans are showing strength, but in all truth, they don't have the industrial capacity. The war has emasculated their inability to manufacture, especially heavy industry manufacturing, because now power and electricity is way, way, way 4 times the cost as you will get in America. That's what you get in. European industrial giants are moving to China. They're moving to America. Europe is being denuded at a time that Europe is saying they want to step up and support Ukraine as long as it takes. Seems to me like a fatuous, empty promise to the Ukrainians. If the Americans leave under Donald Trump, as I have said repeatedly, that Donald Trump has no inkling of supporting, and Donald Trump is lucky, he timed all these actions he's taking very well. The Senate is on recess. Congress is on recess. That one bloc where they have institutional supporters of Ukraine are now at home. Some worrying about midterm elections coming up. Some beginning to look at their polling numbers. If they are cast in the mold of standing in the way of President Trump in his attempt to bring peace to Ukraine, it just may affect their ability to make it through the primaries. So this is not a good time for them to be talking in support of Ukraine. They have to clear and present issues to address, which is their re-election. It's coming up. They will soon be challenged. And who can mount or state a bigger challenge to any member of Congress in the Republican Party more than a condemnation from President Trump and the support for a rival candidate? This is not a time you want to trifle with Trump, who has his eyes set on the Nobel Prize. He really wants it. It will complete him, at least, right? Make him have that one trophy that Obama has over him, even though, like I've said repeatedly, Obama was not deserving of it. I hold Obama responsible for the damage that came to Libya, the destruction of all the democracies in the Sahel that subsequently came from that destruction of Libya, and the unending and continuous attack of Boko Haram in Nigeria. I hold him responsible also for the damage that was done to the Syrian state through his bombing repeatedly of Syria. Obama was given a Nobel Prize that was not deserving of him. But that is the one goal, funny enough, that has now prompted and energized Donald Trump to want that Nobel Prize. And any person, candidate, political heavyweight or lightweight, Lindsey Graham, Richard Blumenthal, whoever you feel you are that stands between him and peace, they know his ability to make things very uncomfortable for you. Go and ask Nikki Haley. Go and ask Liz Cheney. Go and ask all the people who stood with him, challenged him, and now former members of the Republican Party. They can stay very far and talk and say anything they like on tweet, on MSNBC, on CNN. It doesn't mean anything. You'll be a former member of the Republican Party. That's what will happen to you. You may find space in Elon Musk American Party that is coming. So with the whole world is looking forward to Monday, we will see what Trump will lay out to the Ukrainians. He will relay one, Putin's stand, then two, America's position. Already, Trump has told Zelensky in an interview with Sky News after this meeting that Zelensky needs to make a deal. Another thing too, we gather, is that when he's coming on Monday, Zelensky is expected to wear a suit, not come in battle clothes as he has been doing. So we all look forward to the reception of the Ukrainian team on Monday. We look forward also to the European, and we wonder what big announcement Donald Trump will make, although Donald Trump has been hopeful that he can have a second meeting that will include all parties in this crisis, an unfortunate crisis that has led to the destruction of large parts of Ukraine. This is where I end my video for today. If you feel that there will be further progress towards peace in the coming meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky, state it in the comment section. Whatever opinion you have, you think that the European Union can support the cause of the Ukrainians beyond the support being given by the Americans. They can carry that load by themselves. After all, they say they will do it as long as it takes. Maybe they could. If you think so, please put it in the comment section. If you have any other suggestions as to what President Trump should possibly do, put all that also in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe and do well to like and share. It helps the channel grow further. Thank you. Until I see you in my next video. Goodbye.